So first of all, today is the 80th anniversary since the Yom Tov of Chai Elul was revealed. Chai Elul Tovshin Gimel, 1943. The Fiedeke was already in America, and the Fiedeke made a Fabrengen. Now the printed Fabrengen is very, very long, maybe 100 pages. But the Fiedeke probably spoke very bekitzer, very briefly, and then when he wrote it, the Fiedeke used to write his own Fabrengens, he wrote it with greater detail, more arichas, much more detail, much more elaboration. And the Fiedeke said 80 years ago today, that 50 years ago, which is 130 years ago today, his father called him from the Cheder. He was already by mitzvah, so he was learning alone. He had his own madrich. His madrich was the Rashbatz. The father called him from the Cheder, and he called him into his office, and he told him to lock the door, and they put on big day Shabbos, and he told the Friedrich Rebbe, "Gut Yom Tov uns, gut Yom Tov to us. Heint is the Yom Haledes von Shnei HaMe'edes HaGedelim. Today is the birthday of the two great luminaries. That means the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. So the Yom Tov of Chai Elul, the day of Chai Elul, the other was actually revealed here in America 80 years ago. And he said that 50 years earlier his father told him, and the Fiedeke Rebbe's father, the Rebbe Rashab, said to the Fiedeke Rebbe, "Zos nish megala zayin bizas man mesuyam. Do not reveal what I'm telling you till a fixed amount of time passes." So the Fiedeke Rebbe figured a fixed amount of time is 50 years, 50. 50 years on, he was megala dinyan of Chai Elul here in New York, in the United States of America, New York. Chai Elul. So in the other room, I talked about Chai Elul and the Baal Shem Tov. To you, I want to talk about Chai Elul and the Alter Rebbe. Okay, there's two parts of a Fabrengen, Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe was 18 and a half, or 19 and a half, when he met the Mesicha Magid. At that stage in his life, he was already a recognized Gaon in Elul. He was one of the greatest minds in the world. The Alter Rebbe was. And he was very proficient in Torah on a very deep level. And Lahav of Avoda, he also knew other chokhmas, other fields of science and knowledge. And he already had a following. The Alter Rebbe at 18 years old had Talmidim. And the Alter Rebbe's Talmidim at the age of 18 were themselves Go'oinim, big Bali Madregi and Limud. But the Alter Rebbe was Shlei Berach higher than they were. They were to learn from the Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe left. He went to Mizrich, and he came back. So the Fiedeke Rebbe writes, when the Alter Rebbe came back from Mizrich, he came back with a new Torah. The Torah that the Alter Rebbe brought back from Mizrich was the Torah of Avas Yisrael. Not the Avoda of Avas Yisrael, the Torah of Avas Yisrael. In other words, he brought back from Mizrich the idea that V'havdalech kamoich is not just a whole way of life, it's a whole Torah. And the Torah is, what is a Yid? And the Torah that tells you what a Yid is helps you understand I have to relate to a Yid. But the Alter Rebbe brought back from Mizrich the Torah v'havdalech kamoich of Avas Yisrael. And pretty early on, the Alter Rebbe had what he called his own minyan. The Fiedeke Rebbe writes that the Alter Rebbe's first minyan, some of the people who were part of his chevre were Pashat Yidden. Once the Alter Rebbe had his own minyan, he felt empowered. He felt he had koyach. And the Alter Rebbe brought into the world what you and I call the derech of Chassidus Chabad. Chabad, Chochma Bina V'das. What does this mean? What does it mean basically, and what does it mean practically? It means the following, and I'm repeating the same thing I told the other girls. You go into a drugstore, and you can buy a pill, it costs $50 a bottle. And then the person behind the counter, by the way, this is a generic $7, same pills. Same number of pills, it's just a different brand. Yeah. Now sometimes it makes no difference. Ibuprofen, it's all the same, yeah? But sometimes it makes a very big difference. Sometimes taking a generic is a mistake. The difference between the real pill and the fake pill is shalei be'erech. Why? Not because the fake pill doesn't have the chemicals that is necessary, or whatever it is, the vitamins it's supposed to give you, whatever the case is. Because the effectiveness of a pill is not based on what it has inside of itself. The effectiveness of a pill is based on the ability for the body to absorb it. If you take a vitamin that has everything the person needs each day, but it doesn't break down in your system, you have taken no vitamins. So the difference often between a better pill and a cheaper pill is absorpability, to the degree to which your body is able to break it down and benefit from it. This is called absorption. So Chassidus is a pill. And the name of that pill is Even Tev Shebekesed HaMelech. It's the precious stone which is the base of the king's crown. That's what this pill is. And the Alter Rebbe gave it, the Eibishter gave it to the Baal Shem Tov. The Eibishter gave it to the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov gave it to his Talmidim, including the Mezritcher Magid, who in turn gave it to his Talmidim, including the Alter Rebbe. And as the Rebbe would say often, Nara, Nara, Upashta. You know what Nara, Nara, Upashta means? That when a river floods, it radiates outward. The river is flowing in a narrow path, right? But when there's no canal, there's no crevasse, there's no crack in the earth, so the water spill over onto the banks. It spreads out. Nara, Nara, Upashta. Chassidus is Nara, Nara. It's like a river that continues spreading out. Meaning, the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid gave us one point, and since that time, Chassidus has taken on many, many different forms, many different shittas, many different drachim, many different types of minhagim, all representing, all carrying this Even Tev Shebekesed HaMelech, the same pill, the precious stone which is the base of the king's crown, and it radiates into a variety of different forms. Or to say what I just said in different words, what's the difference between one Chassidus and another? Not the Chassidus itself, the packaging. Chassidus is always the same. If it's Chassidus. If it's Chassidus. If it's Chassidus, it has the same Nekuda. What's the Nekuda? The Nekuda is Even Tev Shebekesed HaMelech. Hashem gave the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov gave us the precious stone, which is the base of the king's crown, which has to do with the preciousness of a Jew. It has to do with the idea that a Yid, that the connection with the Yid and the Eibishter is before the Torah even. But that has to be useful. Okay, Chassidus teaches us the most precious thing in the world is a Jew, including you and me. But that has to become a way of life. Has to become a way of life, so that principle, that idea, or that ideal should play itself out in our lives practically. Being a chassid is not saying I believe in a pintel yid. Being a chassid means I try to live on the foundation of how my pintel yid is. And for this, you need methodology. For this, you need culture. And the different chassidus, there's a Lithuanian culture chassidus, there's a Polish culture chassidus, there's a Galician culture chassidus, there's a Hungarian culture chassidus, there's a Romanian culture chassidus. There's all different kinds of chassidus in different countries, and very, very often the difference between one chassidus and another is a reflection of the Goyish culture. So like the chassidus in Egunim. If you come from Russia, you sing depressing Russian song. If you come from Austria-Hungary, you sing waltzes, the songs that they sang in Vienna. The Lahavim, unsere Negunim are based on the Gunim of the people amongst whom the Yidden lived, but we elevate the Negunim, use them for Avoda Hashem. So the different branches of Chassidus use different techniques, different packaging, different levushim to carry the same message. And the message is the Even Tev Shebekesed HaMelech. The Alter Rebbe was unique. Alter Rebbe was unique because the Alter Rebbe's packaging is called Chabad, Chochma Bina V'das. Now the simplest symptom of this, the simplest expression of this, is the fact that the Chabad library, the number of Sfarim we have from 7 Chabad Rebbeim, is probably the same as the entire Hasidic library. If you get every sefer of Chassidus from all the Chassidus put together and put them in bookshelves, the Chabad library is probably equal to that, or close to that. In other words, our Chassidus is far more voluminous, it's far more book-based than other Chassidus, because the Alter Rebbe created a Chassidus that doesn't speak directly to the heart, it speaks to the mind, and the mind has to in turn speak to the heart, and we call it Chabad, Chochma Bina V'das. This is the Chassidus that we had, the Chassidus that the Alter Rebbe created, right? Now, how do you explain this in a more applied way? One of the most important things in Chassidus is the role of the Rebbe, the role of the tzaddik. Tzaddikim are deeply connected to the Eibishter, and the tzaddikim are so deeply connected to the Eibishter that they're tefach havanas latfiach. They're what's called chai b'yetzem, which is a chai l'hakis. In other words, they're so connected to the Eibishter that they can connect us to the Eibishter also. It's not only that they're connected to the Eibishter, but their connection to the Eibishter is so unique that they're able to connect other people to the Eibishter. So a mainstay of Chassidus is going to a tzaddik, to a Rebbe, to a Guterid, to a holy person, to a master, whose role it is to help us connect ourselves to the Eibishter. In other words, whose role it is to help us reveal within ourselves this so-called Pintel Yid, to help us reveal within ourselves the Even Tev B'Kesed HaMelech, this precious stone which is the base of the king's crown. And the Alter Rebbe went in a different direction than his Chavedim. He went in a different direction than his friends, and he got into trouble for it. They didn't like him. They criticized him. They protested, and so on. What did the Alter Rebbe do that was different? They believed, the other Chassidish Rebbes believed, this is a very long time ago. I mean, today we're all orphans. We're all orphans. There's only one place to go, that's the oil. I heard a joke from a Misnagid. If all Misnagid make such jokes, it's not so bad. A Misnagid said, what's the difference between Moshe Rabbeinu and the Lubavitcher Rebbe? He said, Moshe Rabbeinu, everybody knows he passed away, but nobody knows where he's buried. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, we're not sure if he passed away now, but everybody knows where he's buried. Why? Because you got a problem, that's where you go. And if you don't have a problem, that's where you go. That's the place to go. Why? Because the Rebbe leapt. But Chassidim had Rebbes, they were big tzaddikim. Groise tzaddikim. They went to their Rebbes. What did the Alter Rebbe do different than the rest? A simple thing. The Alter Rebbe believed that it is important that he give his Chassidim the precious stone itself. Meaning, not he should keep the precious stone by himself, as the other Derechim believed. And the Chassidim will benefit from that precious stone by their association with him, which is called, as you learned in high school and in seminary Aleph, V'tzadik b'emunasa yichya, al tikri yichya el yechaya. The tzaddik is able to give life to other people. But the way the tzaddik gives life, because the Eibishter gave him a special koyach. The Eibishter gave him the Even Tev B'Kesed HaMelech. The Eibishter gave him the Kud of Chassidus. And you come to the Rebbe and he charges you up. But the stone he keeps close to his vest, doesn't give it to you. Why doesn't he give it to you? Not because he's cheap, but because you're going to contaminate it, you're going to violate it, you're going to abuse it, you're going to use it bad. The Alter Rebbe believed that you have to give the Chassidus itself to the Chassidim. The Even Tev B'Kesed HaMelech, the precious stone which is the base of the king's crown, itself has to be given to us. And this is the Chiddush of Chassidus Chabad. Chacham bin Avodas. Chassidus Chabad is a body of knowledge that carries inside of itself, I'm going to use a word that's strange, but it'll make the point, that carries inside of itself magic. And the magic that it carries inside of itself is the ability to connect a Yid to the Eibishter on a level that the Yid doesn't even understand why he's connected. In other words, Chassidus Chabad is not a philosophy. Chassidus Chabad, I don't know how many memorim you learned, but I probably learned one or two more than you. I have never, ever seen in a Maimer Chassidus proof for anything. Not proof of the Eibishter, not proof of Teda, not proof of Yiddishkeit, never. Chassidus never proved that Judaism is true, it just explains it. It just warms our hearts. Why? Because Chassidus Chabad is a Chassidus, it's not a philosophy. Meaning, when you're learning Chassidus Chacham bin Avodas, you're not understanding the Eibishter objectively with an open mind. You're understanding Torah and mitzvahs with an open mind. You're understanding all of these things on the healthy foundation of faith. And the purpose to learn is to bring Hashem into your brain, or to bring Hashem forward from your neshama, from your subconscious into your brain, into your consciousness. This is the chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. And in order to do this, you have to create Chassidus Chabad. So here's the thing that you have to appreciate. Okay? Alter Rebbe was a very smart guy. I never met him. You know that, right? I'm older than you, but I never met Alter Rebbe. Never met Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe was a chochamadir. I was telling the other girls, right? When you say Baal Shem Tov, what word comes to mind? I mean, it depends who you ask, but in my opinion, when you say Baal Shem Tov, the word that comes to mind is love. When you say Alter Rebbe, what word comes to mind? Brain, cup. What did you say? Tanya, okay. Cup, moyach. And the only other word that I would use is maybe emes. Alter Rebbe was obsessive about emes. It was a moydenik cup. You think it was hard for the Alter Rebbe to make the philosophy of Chabad? He could have done it in his sleep. We know from the Friedrich Rebbe Siches that the Alter Rebbe began to teach Kabbalah according to the principles of Chabad, which is using the mashal of Psadi Achzalakah, before he met the Mr. Magid. When he was still what we would call today Misnagid, the Alter Rebbe was already then explaining Kabbalah using the same system of philosophy that he would use later. You know what's hard? It's hard to package God in intellectual ideas. That's what the Alter Rebbe's Mesiras Nefesh was. Alter Rebbe's Mesiras Nefesh was to teach us Chochma Bina Vadas, and you mentioned the Tanya, it's a good example. And when you learn Chassidus, it doesn't only touch your brain, it touches your soul. It's a funny thing, I gotta tell you, it's a very, very, very funny thing. And I know too many stories like this. Again, a lot of you were here last year, so you know already that I'm basically born, bred, brainwashed, and happy about it. So I don't have an open mind. I'm not objective, you know. I'm not objective, yeah. But when you see how afraid people are from Tanya, you say, what are you afraid of? If you were, I had a former student, she's today a big shlucha, she was an assistant rabbi in a conservative temple. She says, I hate to go to shul because the guys don't know how to lane. She taught all the boys and the girls Kiryas HaTorah for their bar mitzvah and the bat mitzvah in this conservative temple. So she met a shliach, and she started learning Tanya, and she fell in love with the Tanya. That's how she became frum. So she walks into this library, this conservative temple, Northern California, gorgeous library. Much, much nicer library than Ola Torah. You know why? Take one guess. Because no one took a book out of the library, ever. No one could read it in Hebrew, so the library's beautiful. No one touched it. She walks into the library, there's thousands of Sfarim, and Mrs. Sfarim. The rabbi was a learned man, maybe even he was from in his personal life, and she's looking and looking and looking. He says to her English name, which I don't remember, what are you looking for? She says, I'm looking for our copy of the Tanya. She figured that the library, Mr. there's a Tanya. The guy turned white as a ghost and said, that's a bad book. If you shouldn't read it, and if you're reading, you should stop. Now, of course, he just threw her into that shliach. That's the end of the story. Now, what's he afraid of? If she was looking for a Zohar, would he have had a problem? If he was looking for Eitz Chai, would he have a problem? What's with the Tanya? Looking for Kutim Aran, would he have a problem? And on the other side of the spectrum, a guy tells me he was learning in a big Litvish yeshiva. His father was a supporter. He started learning Chassidus, they kicked him out of the yeshiva. So his father said, what's the crime? He didn't steal, he didn't kill, he wasn't Mechal Shabbos, he didn't miss Seder, he's learning Chassidus. He says, oh, I don't need to in my yeshiva. Why? A ganze Tag with the Ledenberg and the Mebishten. You speak Yiddish. All day, all you do is talk about God. A ganze Tag with the Ledenberg and the Mebishten. You see, so, I didn't know it was an Avoda, I'm not particularly familiar. But you see, Allah have made of Tanya, everyone's afraid of Tanya. And you know what they're afraid of the Tanya? Because they don't understand it. Tanya is an intellectual book, you could learn it. You can understand the Tanya very well. Tanya is a very practical, very realistic book. But what the Tanya does to you is not consistent to what the Tanya says to you. You learn the Tanya, and you understand the ideas, and something happens to you that's more than the information. Because in the Tanya, which is called the Torah Shebeksav of Chassidus, the written Torah Chassidus, not just Chassidus Chabad, but Chassidus HaKlolos also. All of Chassidus, the Torah Shebeksav is Tanya. Like the Rebbe said once, just like Avraham Avinu learned the Torah before it was given, the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid learned Chassidus before it was given. The Torah Shebeksav of all of Chassidus is the Sefer Tanya Kadisha, and it touches a neshama. It touches the neshama. So Chassidus looks intellectual, and you're supposed to understand. And to be honest, Chassidus Chabad is a deep limud that requires a strong mind and deep dedication. There's nothing cream puffy about Chassidus Chabad. It's really deep. It's a deep and scholarly limud. Satife iyun. Chassidus Chabad is a very deep limud, and you're supposed to understand and faket, like they say. You start learning Chassidus Chabad, you become an applicator, more the philosophy. You talk about God all day long, you get confused. We can debate that, but what the Rabbeim gave us was not the philosophy. What the Rabbeim gave us was packaged inside the Chochma Bina Vadas is the Eibishter, is the Even Tesh V'Kesed HaMelech. You learn Tanya, right? You learn Tanya. So in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe describes at the beginning of Perek Hey the difference between Torah and mitzvahs. And what do they say about Torah and mitzvahs? That the difference between mitzvahs and Torah are, mitzvahs is like a shirt, you put on a shirt. But Torah is mozain v'gam levush, it's food. What happens to you when you eat food? the food changes you, and you change the food. The food breaks down, becomes a part of you, and you become advanced, you become enhanced, you become renewed because of the food. You get energized because of the food that you ate. And the Lashon Tanya is Makaf Mukaf. You surround the Torah, and the Torah surrounds you. And then the Alter Rebbe writes the famous words, V'yichud Zeh, this union happens with the Torah, there's no yichud nifla, I forgot the exact wording, there's no oneness between a person and an idea greater than the yichud that can happen between a person and learning Torah. Chassidus Chabad is poshet, a tool for absorption. The brain investment of Chassidus is not to understand. The brain investment of Chassidus is that understanding is very pneumistic, understanding is very internal, understanding is very, very, very processed. And because understanding is very, very processed, it carries the Eventesh HaMelech much more effectively. There's an alte Chassidische Wort, wisst ihr, Matschke darf machen Meshuge, Masche darf machen Shikir, und Geld darf machen Meshuge, Chassidus darf machen Achossen. You speak Yiddish. Alcohol has to make you drunk, money has to make you crazy, Chassidus Chassid. Yeah, but I drank alcohol and I'm not drunk. I have money and I'm not crazy. I learned Chassidus, I'm not a Chassid. I just need a little more. The koyach of Chassidus, including Chabad, is not the philosophy. It's important to appreciate this. It's how this philosophy gives us a very, very precise, a very developed tool for what we call absorption, for internalization, a reinbringen in apnimius, to make it become into me, become one with me. This Alter Rebbe created, and this is what he dedicated his life to. And this is why his friends, Talmidei HaMaggid, criticized him, but the Alter Rebbe really separated himself from the mainstream of Chassidus because he wanted to do what he needed to do, was to create Chassidus Chabad. Chochma bin Avoda, reinbringen in apnimius. Now the truth is this. Chabad Chassidus is a little bit off to the side from the mainstream of Chassidus. And there's no question that a part of that is because of the machlekes, the Alter Rebbe, but they started to criticize the Alter Rebbe for Nalazait, and he said, okay, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, don't bother me, won't bother you. There used to be something called Kelul Chassidim, and then it was replaced by something else which is called Kelul Chabad. The Alter Rebbe made Kelul Chabad rather than Kelul Chassidim because they began to criticize him very severely, very deeply. And there's another reason, there's many reasons, but there's another reason why. Because in other Chassidus, Chitzonius is very important. Chitzonius is very important. Chitzonius, how you dress, what you eat. Chitzonius is very important. Chitzonius is very important. Chabad, Mont, Pnimius. Chabad, Mont, Pnimius. Chabad demands Pnimius. I did a Q&A recently where I must have said in one of my classes, I talk. I have 13,000 classes on the internet. So if you want to blackmail me, it's out there. You just got to find it. I mean, I've said plenty of things that I shouldn't have said. But in one of my classes, I must have said off the cuff that in the name of the Pnimius, Chabad is going down the sewer. I said those words. So someone called me out on it. What did you mean when you said in the class? I don't even remember saying it, but I know I could have said it because I probably said it 100 times. In the name of Pnimius, Chabad, what's the pshat? What is Pnimius? Pnimius means that what matters is what's genuine, not how it looks. Now what happens if you're genuinely a chitzon? If you're genuinely a simple person, if you're genuinely not deep. So, I'm a Chabadnik, right? I'm not allowed to be a chitzon, I gotta, but there's nothing. So then you have to be what you are. If I heard once from the Lubavitcher Chassid, Halavai Poilisha, today we wish we all Chagas Chasidim. Pnimius is an ideal, and it's a standard. Umedat Badem Halton, you have to be holding by Pnimius. But Chassidim that were holding by Pnimius, there's no question that they de-emphasized Chitzonius, how they dressed and what they ate and the different minhagim. It was far less important than the Avoda, the limud and the Avoda and the connection to the Eibishter. But I want you to know that in our Rebbe's journal, which is now published, he writes that the Friedrich Rebbe told him, that the Rebbe Rashab told the Friedrich Rebbe, quote, Ich bin mekane Polish Chitzonius. I envy Polish Chitzonius. It's not Chabad. Chabad is not into how things look. But it helps. the culture, that you have to dress a certain way and you have to eat certain foods. The cultural forms of other Chassidus holds people. And I think we could all agree that Lubavitch in 2023 could use a hefty dose of Chitzenius. It would do us a lot of good if we had culture, if we would conform. Lubavitch Chassidim are rebels by nature. Lubavitch are amazing people, but you cannot create a community of them. You know why? Every one of them is a Rebbe. Any other group of people, you put them together. The truth of the matter is, Jews b'chlal are very hard to herd. Somebody told me very recently, and I forgot who. Maybe someone quite important actually, that when the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, they were trying to subdue the Jews. So they sent these senators, these machas, these military people to discipline the Jews, make the Jewish people conform. So one of these regents, one of these agents of Rome that came to try and subdue the Jews, wrote back a letter to Rome saying, these people are impossible to subdue. They're just by nature, they don't allow people to tell them what to do. It's a Jewish trait, but Chabadnik has got an extra measure of that to every one of us. You don't, who are you? Everyone's in Rome. Everyone's a shtickler Rebbe. It's a chassadim. Because conformism is a good thing. It's a form of control. You know what? We all need control.
If you wouldn't have it, we wouldn't be able to
It's a double-edged sword, but you know what? It's not black and white. You can have chitzenius to a degree and be a rebel to a degree. It's not either or. It's not, okay, I have no conformity. I do whatever I want. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care what looks. Kavana. It's a little bit, there's a need, there's a possibility, there's place for both. There's no question about that, there's place for both. So the Rebbe Rashab said to Frierdiker Rebbe, Ich bin mekane polische chitzenius. I envy the fact that in other Chassidus there's an emphasis placed on chitzenius. But Chabad is plimius. And Chabad is plimius means you got to learn, you got to understand, you got to contemplate, and you got to develop personal feelings with the Eibishter. For those people whom Chassidus Chabad is real, honestly, they're the best Jews in the world. But you're not a Chabadnik because you're a member of this community, because your father was, or your grandfather was. You're a Chabadnik because you create your own Chassidus. This is true in anything, but it's particularly true in Chabad. You're not a Chas because your father was. You're a Chas because you're a Chas. You don't know Chassidus because your father knows Chassidus because your dad knows Chassidus. You know Chassidus because Alenga heard of it. You have to put yourself into understanding it with a Mesida and a Mesida with a dedication, an unlimited dedication, and hope that Hashem gives you Sayata Dishmaya, a little bit of help, or a lot of help, or all the help. They should be able to understand. And that's the beginning of being a chassid, to learn and understand Chassidus and to internalize it. This is the derech of Chabad. We got to do the work ourselves. So what comes out of all of the above, in other words, I've talked in a circle, but what comes out of all of the above is the following statement. The Alter Rebbe changed the role of the Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe changed the function of a Rebbe. Before the Alter Rebbe and outside of the Alter Rebbe, the role of the Alter Rebbe was to touch Yiddish and Neshamis and warm them up. Wake Yiddish and Neshamis up. Like a guy told me, he went to the Rebbe, he got the recharge. Which is why in Chagas, in other Hasidic groups, the average number of times a Chassid went to a Rebbe in a year was 5. They went, every couple of months they went back to the Rebbe. In Chabad, the average number of times they went to the Rebbe was once in 2 years. Now, it helped that they were very poor. There's no question about it. They had no money. Neither did the Paltiel, but we in particular had no money. But also the purpose of the travel. The role of the Rebbe changes from Chagas to Chabad. In Chagas, the Rebbe charges up your neshama, and in Chabad girls, the Rebbe doesn't charge up the neshama. The Rebbe gives instructions. He gives you a maimer chassidus. He gives you the chassidus, the maimer. He teaches you how to do avoda, but the work you got to do yourself. The chassidus happens through what we call avoda b'koyach Atzmo, the work we have to do on our own. If I'm going to be a Chabad chassid, I'm going to have to learn, I'm going to have to daven, I'm going to have to think, and have to purify myself, and I'm going to say a very, very, really bad word, so don't listen, okay? I have to do a bit of leitzkafia, a little bit of submission, a little bit of brechenzach. I know it's un-American at the extreme, to not give myself everything that I want, to create a base, to create a keli, to create a space where the chassidus can rest. Eskafia creates a keli for a lichtigkeit, for oil, which is what Chassidus is, you see. And this is the Alter Rebbe's revolution. That the Rebbe's job is to teach, not to inspire. The Rebbe's job is to teach the Chassid how to self-inspire, how to do his own avoda, how to be mevared his own midas. As you girls all know, right? The Rebbe said a sikha, which was then published as a maimer, as a sikha, which is called Inyana Shel Teidas HaChassidus, on the essence of Chassidus, right? You learned it ever in school. Inyana Shel Teidas. So the first page that the Rebbe brings 4 ideas of Chassidus. And throughout the Kuntris, the Rebbe argues that all these 4 are equal. You can't say one is better and one is worse. They're all equal. Number 1, Chassidus came into the world to wake people up from a change of faint. Number 2, Chassid Serfam Lefnim Yishur Zadin. Chassidus came into the world to introduce us to the idea of being extra frum, not following the law to the letter, but being Lefnim Yishur Zadin. Number 3, to be mahapech the midas tivium, to make the shanes midas of ativ, the shanes ten midas of, for a person to change his character, to change his nature, so that his emotional self, his passion self, should not be based on his nature. In other words, should not be based on his animal, but should be based on his mind. And number 4, that the human mind, not just the nefesh halakis, but also the nefesh hasichlis, and in a certain way, not just the nefesh hasichlis, even the nefesh habahamis, Zol kashenin verstehen alakus, should be a seat where they can actually understand Chassidus. So there's 4 ideas, from lowest to highest: to wake a person up from faint, to be extra frum, to work on midas, which has to do with the emotions, and to understand the lakut, which has to do with the moyach, with the brain. All of these 4 are equal, according to the Rebbe. They're just different. They're equal. To wake people up from a hisalfos, to wake people up from a faint. They're all equal. They're very, very important. The Alter Rebbe created the Chassidus, which allows the average person to understand, get lakai, to understand the Eibishter in his brain, to internalize the lakus in his mind and in his heart, and to use seichel as a medium for lakus. This is really driving me nuts. What is this? Of tzalach. What's he doing? Backing up from where to where? From here to the moon. Huh?
He's trying to get away from credit.
It's anti-Semitism, huh? He's going to go in a circle. What's he up to over there?
He's backing into the part of himself.
Wow. It says, I think it says even in a Yem, but it's brought in the Sichos. And the Friedricher Rebbe said, the Alter Rebbe is the ultimate Mechayim Mesim. So nishtar kein teiter ezach. There's nothing more lifeless than the human brain. And the Alter Rebbe made from the human brain a keli from God. The Alter Rebbe made the human mind a keli for lakus. How? Through a philosophy? No. By planting in the mayach the Even Tov Shebekesar HaMelech. By planting in the brain the Even Tov Shebekesar HaMelech, the precious stone which is the base of the king's crown. Now, Rabbi say, every Chassidus works because it has what's called Darkei HaChassidus. There's the Chassidus, and the Chassidus is the learning, and the Chassidus is the davening, the Chassidus is the understanding of the Lakus, the Chassidus is the Birin Amidus, the Chassidus is the Lefnim Yishur Zadin, and so on. But every Chassidus has a culture, has a way of life. And that way of life supports and holds the Chassidus. Or to say it in the language, as I said earlier, that way of life is the tools of absorption. The Even Tov Shebekesar HaMelech reaches us because it conforms to the different things that we do help bring to us this nekuda, this point of the precious stone, which is the base of the king's crown. What is Chassidus Chabad culture? Chassidus Chabad culture. So obviously you have to learn Chassidus. Obviously you have to daven. Obviously you have to use your mind. You have to use your mind to arouse your heart and closer to the Eibishter. But there are some very distinctive components to Chassidus Chabad. And one of them is the Chassid Rebbe relationship. That the Chassid Rebbe relationship in Chabad is very distinctive and it's very different. And I'm going to tell you a Polish Maisa. To prove my point of what Chabad is, I'm going to tell you a Maisa of a non-Chabad Chassid. So eat your heart out. I heard the Maisa with an Upsherin. I was sitting next to an Elter Rid. And he told the story that he heard from his shwager when he told us stories about 50 or 60 years before. A Geschmacka Maisa, a very interesting Maisa. One of the largest Chassidus in Galicia, Poland, was Ger. The Ger Rebbe. There was the first Ger Rebbe was the B'tzir Meir of Ger, the Chedusharim, then the second was Rabbi Yehuda Aryeh, the Sfas Emes. The third Ger Rebbe was Imre Yemes. He passed away in 1948. He's buried in Yerushalayim, actually. And then since then, there's been 3 sons, one after the next. The Beis Yisrael, then there was the Simcha Bun, and now there's the Rabbi Yankele. The current Ger Rebbe is the grandson of the Imre Yemes. So the Imre Yemes, or the Sfas Emes, was a big Rebbe. But the big Rebbe, on an average Yom Tov, you're listening to this, on an average Yom Tov, the Sfas Emes had 40 to 50,000 guests. 40 to 50,000 guests. I don't think that Rebbe ever had more than 10,000. Ever. But in Gur, every Yom Tov, 40, 50,000 people. It's like an army. It's like a stadium full of people. And of course, the Rebbe was very busy, and the amount of time he gave to each individual was very, very limited. But Chassidim would come in huge numbers. Amongst the Chassidim who came were people who made a living by taking other people's wealth. Pickpockets. None of them. They said, "Oh, you might say, you mean I don't know anything about it." Yeah, but they call them hyenas. They're scavengers, right? So the human scavengers also. You work and they eat from your work. That's what it meant. And there were Ger Chassidim who were in that business. Their parnasa was they took from other people's parnasa. So people came to the Ger Rebbe and they stayed in these, these accommodations, these hotels, whatever it was, and they were afraid to keep their wealth in their room because the professionals were very good at breaking locks and so on. So the Rebbetzin, the wife of the Ger Rebbe, had a safe, a big safe in her house, and even the biggest Ganef would not go into the Rebbe's house to crack the safe and take the wealth. That much respect they had. And the rich people, when they came to Ger, would deposit it into the safe. So when you came, you'd go into the Rebbetzin, and give her your wallet, or your stocks, or your diamond, or your gold, and she would give you a receipt. That you gave a kach v'kach, and when you left, you would go back to with the receipt, and she would give you back your wealth. It was an old chassid, a schlepper. Vamos look like a schlepper. Nemushes, Lekuti bas lekuti. He looked like a schlepper. He came 3 times a year. Pesach, Shavuos, he came to the Ger Rebbe. And he would go into the Rebbetzin with his wallet. His wallet was older than him. It was battered and broken and torn. And he said he'd give it to the Rebbetzin to watch, because there's a lot of money here. The Ger Rebbetzin never even opened the wallet. Because she figured the guy's got 10 cents in it, a quarter. What's they got? They're going to got a schnotter. So she would put the wallet in the safe and she would write, Shmerel gave me a wallet. If she was really a wealthy man, she would have counted the money. A kid said one Yom Tov, the wallet was displaced. Can't find it. So after Yom Tov, the Shmerel guy comes back to the Ger Rebbe and says, where's the wallet? And she says, I can't find it. But here's 15 zlotys, $15. It's probably more than you had in the wallet, and everybody's good, gegensdreht. The guy took the 15 zlotys, looked at it, looked at the rabbits, and thought for a moment, and thank you, and he left. And then she found the wallet. And in the wallet there were a few hundred zlotys. There was a hamoin mit geld, a sach geld. Far more money than she could have expected this man to have. So she tells her husband this maise. The guy comes with a wallet, and she thinks he's a schnotter. She never counts his money. The last time he came, she displaced the wallet, and she gave him 15 zlotys, and he found out later the wallet had hundreds of zlotys. So the Ger Rebbe says, the next time he comes, send him to me. A kid said, the guy comes the next time, and he goes into the Rebbetzin with a new old wallet. And just noch a alter wallet. He found a place, a dafka old wallet, and he's giving it to the Rebbetzin. And the Rebbetzin says, I found your wallet. Oh, okay. And I open your wallet, and he's like, as if he doesn't know how much he wants. Oh, okay. And there were hundreds of zlotys in the wallet. He says, okay. He's like, I gave you 15 zlotys, how can you complain? So he said like this, Ich weiß as a Rebbe darf Geld. I know a Rebbe needs money. So whenever I come, I bring money. When you gave me the 15 zlotys, I figured it's change. The Rebbe needed the money. That's what the money's for. That's what it's for. There was an old Chabad chassid who lived here in New York. His name was Rebbe Yaichel Simpson. I didn't remember him, but I read his biography. And he used to say, so you have to know Yiddish for this line. So a Rebbe darf kommen mit 3 Sachen. Bebeitel, bebittel, bebutel. Beitel means a wallet. Bittel, you know what it means. You don't know what it means. And buttel means a bottle. Bebeitel, bebittel, bebutel. That was his line. You say l'chaim and you bring geld. A Rebbe bring me geld. So he says to the Gerrer Rebbetzin, the money was for the Rebbe. You gave me the 15 zlotys. So she was so mishtoimim, she told her husband, I said, bring him in. Anyway, so he comes into the Gerrer Rebbe, and no one got such a schus. I mean, the Gerrer Rebbe gave shalom, but that was it. You know what it means? 40,000 chassidim a yom tov. I mean, to shake hands takes hours. And he says to him, my wife, the Rebbetzin told me what happened. Okay? So he says to him, ask me whatever you want, you can have it. Whatever you want, you got it. Whatever you want. Bet michal geben. So he tells the Gerrer Rebbe, bald kum Pesach. Soon as Pesach. He came to Pesach. Ich will at dem Pesach, soll ich alles Sudas Meshamer sein dem Rebbe. I want for the 8 days of Pesach, I should be the Mesharas. I should bring him the wine, I should bring him the matzah, I should bring him the karpas, I should bring him the mother, the charesis, the chicken soup, the potato salad, whatever it is. I want to bring to them everything. So the Rebbe said, good, done. And then he says to him, Chazan nar, hast gekent ois beten millionen. The Rebbe said, if you would ask me for millions of dollars, I'd give you that too. And he asked him to be my Mesharas for a Yom Tov. This is a Chabad Maise, because it brings out the attitude in Chabad. In Chabad, a Chassid serves his Rebbe, not his Rebbe serves him. We take from the Rebbe based on what we give. And the more we're able to do what it is that the Rebbe wants from us or needs from us or instructs us, that creates the bonding. In other words, in other Chassidus, you go to the Rebbe because the Rebbe has something that he's giving you. In Chabad, the basis for whatever the Rebbe is able to give you is what you bring. They tell stories. Some of those stories are not even true, but they're nice stories. There's a story which is told by the BiKoach Posket, which is apparently not true because of the Rebbe's Rishima Shetan and the Maisa, but it's such a good story, so I'm going to tell it even though it never happened. This is true shekel. The BiKoach Posket was G'deilich Sirat Monazaket from the Rebbe Alter Rebbe. So in the Rebbe's Rishima, it's a different thing. But when I was growing up, I used to always hear the BiKoach Posket never went to the middle of Rebbe. He never went to the Tzemach Tzedek. But first of all, he would send, you know the story, BiKoach Posket, you know the story, right? Where he gave Rashbat's a pidyon. It was a blank piece of paper. He sent a pidyon to Tzemach Tzedek, and he told the Rashbat's, don't open it. And the Rashbat's opened it, it was a blank piece of paper. And when Tzemach Tzedek opened the pidyon, Tzemach Tzedek said right away, you read it. You looked at it. He says, he told him a strenge word. The Rashbat's paid a very heavy price for that neugierigkeit, for that curiosity. He told sehr stark for them. So the story, the BiKoach Posket didn't go to the Mittel Rebbe, he didn't go to Tzemach Tzedek. But first of all, he used to send pidyonis to the Rebbeim. And second of all, the Rebbe used to send them Yungalite. In the olden days, the Rebbeim used to send Yungalite to different Chassidim to learn Chassidus. Darkya had to be a Eved, had to daven, had to learn. So the BiKoach Posket was one of the addresses that the Rebbeim, the Mittel Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek used to send Yungalite to him. They teach them Darkya Avoda, Darkya Chassidus. So the word was that they said to the Mittel Rebbe, to the BiKoach Posket, how you talking, you don't go to the Mittel Rebbe. How you talking, you don't go to the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek. So the story, which is not true, was that the BiKoach Posket, I heard it from my Mashpiyim as a kid. He says, ich bin gegangen zum Rebbe, I went to the Alter Rebbe, I gave my Yechidish Eben Nefesh. I got nothing more to give. I can't give the Mittel Rebbe and the Tzemach Tzedek. I gave it away to the Alter Rebbe. Fahren und nicht geben, kenn ich nicht. To go to a Rebbe and not give, I simply can't do it. Fahren und nicht geben, kenn ich nicht. I cannot travel and not give. So I don't go. This nekuda, which is a deep nekuda, it's a serious nekuda, it changes the complexion of the Chassid Rebbe relationship. In other Chassidus, I think you could say that the primary regesh within a Chassid and a Rebbe was ahava. Both ways. In Chabad, Emes Chassidim, there was a certain ema, there was a certain awe. Because it was based on the appreciation that our connection to Kedusha, to Kedush HaKadoshim, to Kvei Kedushas Adeneinu Mereinu V'Rabbeinu, the ability, like Moshe Rabbeinu was told, take off your shoes because you're in a holy spot. The ability to come closer to the Rebbe was based on ourselves being open up to the holiness that the Rebbe represents. And that's called Avoda. That's called Iskafia. That's called Avoda Satfila. That's called Birer Amidis. That's called From Lefnim Yishuras Adin Chassid Seirfan. And in Chassidus Chabad it was a Yesod. It was a foundational idea. Now don't kid yourself. 100 years ago, you think every Lubavitcher was a Chabadnik, was a Pnimi? There were plenty of Pashta Yidden. And the Pashta Yidden had the same relationship with the Rebbe as another Chassidus. A simple relationship. Very simple. You write to the Rebbe answers, and that's it. You go right there. But the ideal of Chabad, Chachmin Abadas, was that the relationship should have a property, a quality of Hadrocha. The Rebbe teaches, and we learn. And we have to learn the lessons well. We have to learn the lessons well. We have to allow ourselves to take in the Chassidus in the kind of way that you learn Chassidus until Chassidus makes you into a Chassid. It's beeping inside and it's beeping outside. Okay? So I just want to finish with this. We're in a different generation for many, many, many reasons. It's the Richtike der Yosem. I mean, the Holocaust is a cataclysm of historic proportions, no question about it. But we're still Chabadniks in a basic way. When the Rebbe became a Rebbe, he said a Maimer, Basilagan Achizikala, as you all know. After the Rebbe said that first Maimer, he spoke another Siche in the tone of a Maimer. Siche said a Maimer have a different tone. The Maimer is spoken in a Nign, and when the Rebbe finished the Maimer Basilagani, he spoke a Siche for 5 minutes in the same tone. I don't know how it started because we're missing. There's a tape of that 5 minutes. And the Rebbe said to the Chassidim Tanash, you made me into a Rebbe, you put me on the chair. Do not think that now you can go back to sleep. Because this is Chabad. In Chabad, verlos men sich nicht auf a Rebbe, man darf allein tun. Chabad, you cannot rely on the Rebbe, you have to do your own work. The Rebbe says, I'll help you as much as I could. But the shlichus of the Rebbe gegeben, the missions that we got from the Rebbe, the Nasi Adar, we have to do ourselves. And the Rebbe says, nothing is going to help, not to write notes, not to say l'chaim, not to sing a ning. The work we have to do ourselves. And in this way, we're very much Chabadnikis. The idea that every Lubavitcher Chassid, especially those who are zeichet to be shluch, has a sense that there's something expected of me. I'm not a private citizen who looks after himself and his family and he's good. But we have a duty to the greater world. Is in our DNA. It's in our DNA. It's in our genetic makeup. The idea, it's axiomatic to Chassidus, because this is the truth. Our connection to the Eibishter, our Pnim is the connection to the Eibishter. Our connection to the Rebbe, our Pnim is the connection to the Rebbe, is predicated on us going past ourselves. Because this is what the Rebbe needs for us to do, this is what the Rebbe wants from us to do, this is what the Rebbe tells us to do, and we get by giving. That's what it comes down to. We get by giving. And this is the Alter Rebbe's innovation in Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe invented a Chassidus where the Rebbe doesn't inspire the Chassid, the Rebbe tells the Chassid what to do, and the Chassid does it. And that's where the inspiration lies. The inspiration lies in carrying through the Rebbe said to us. Okay? So good Yom Tov uns. Shalom Teva, Ktiv Chsima Teva. Yeah, Shalom Teva.